everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Joined by Tim Faulkner with EcoRI. Thank you again for coming in today.
My pleasure.
We almost always have representation from EcoRI.org, the state's leading source of environmental journalism here. Check it out if you want to get the latest environmental news. And one of the stories I want to start with you that was in this week was all eyes continue to be on Barville. The Department of Health's role in this and the process moving forward, how they're urging the authorities who are in charge of either signing off on this or not to keep such things in mind as climate change, effect on humans. Were you surprised when you saw this come from the Department of Health?
Yeah, definitely. I think they had to do 2 reports, and this was like a new updated report that was requested by the Energy Facility Siting Board. And yeah, they really stood out as they made a huge emphasis on talking about the impact climate change is going to have in Burrillville, in Rhode Island, and across the whole region. And so they weren't really asked to do that specifically, but they definitely took it upon themselves to do it.
And so how does that impact the process? If you read the piece, you can see now moving forward, I mean, there's going to be some hearings that it's going to be happening on a regular basis. So talk with us about the timeline and the process.
Right, so how it looks now is there's going to be a couple of hearings. In fact, there's going to be one, I believe, in Burrillville on the, let me see, hold on. There's a couple. There's either one on the 5th, there's one on the 15th, and then there's going to be a couple in October.
You have to read the article, EcoRI.org.
Yes, read the article. So there's going to be one public hearing at Burrillville High School, and then I think there's a hearing maybe next week, which is going to be at the siting board in Warwick about a motion to dismiss the case by the town of Burrillville and the Conservation Law Foundation. And then there'll be another hearing after that. And then a whole series of hearings kick off between October and January. And then probably within a month or 2 after that, they're going to issue their final ruling.
So, you know, I saw that on the article, that number of hearings that you said during the October to January timeframe. I mean, several days a week for weeks.
Right.
I mean, are you just going to be tethered to the hearings and kind of doing your EcoRI tweeting?
But it shouldn't be as to like every day, because they EFSB or the siting board has to do other business as well. So they might do 2 or 3 meetings a week, maybe 1. They've got to work around the schedule and the holidays, so it shouldn't be too intense. But there'll be a lot.
But you're going to focus your schedule around that.
So yeah, I don't have a choice. So I've got to be there when
you
they're there.
have to be there.
Right.
So what do you expect? I mean, we've seen, again, so much opposition to this, and here we are. We're fall of 2017. I mean, do the folks who have concerns, will they be heard?
Oh, definitely. I think so. And I've been seeing it in these advisory opinions from state agencies that they are referencing a lot of comments from people, and they're taking those seriously. And everyone will get a chance to speak out. Again, if they haven't, they'll get another chance to do it more than once. The public's going to have a chance to speak up and contribute written comments as well. So yeah, I think there'll be a good chance, and I'm not sure where it's going to go. Sometimes I feel like that this could get rejected, and the governor's maybe not quite as strong in support as she was of it. But then again, you sort of look at the criteria the siting board uses to judge this, and there's not a lot of room there for them to have some discretion and say that they're going to reject it.
What do you think of those folks who, especially, talk about the governor, but let's go to Senator Whitehouse, that have had concerns about his lack of speaking out on the issue, despite being someone at the federal level speaking out so strongly on climate change?
Right. Yeah, that is a big contradiction, and a lot of people bring that up. And I don't, he never comes out and says why. He, first of all, said he was kind of neutral on the power plant, but I think deep in his heart, he knows that fracking and natural gas is really destructive, and it's a really powerful contributor to climate change. So I don't think he'll say it, but I think probably in his heart he probably doesn't support it. I know there's obviously a lot of union support, just like the governor. They don't want to offend anybody. And, it is a big project that's going to bring a lot of money to the state and a lot of jobs. So, I think taking a stance on it has its risk, especially for politicians.
So you can see the position that he's in.
Right.
Do you think a lot of people, for them, that has an impact maybe at the voting booth?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know how it's going to show up in the voting booth. I mean, this is obviously a real high-profile issue, and it gets a lot of media attention. But, I think outside of Burrillville, I'm not sure that people in Rhode Island, I think maybe unless they're really tuned in to a lot of the nuances maybe of the case, that maybe they don't see how it's going to impact them directly, not yet at least.
I'm going to tap gears here, because when I have Frank in or Joe in, we talk about the things that EcoRI is doing in the community. The Zero Trash Bash.
Oh, right. Yes, that's tonight, in fact. So if you're seeing this a couple days from now, hopefully it went well. Yeah, they've been working very hard on this. I know Joe puts a lot of energy into this, mental energy and physical energy, and it's our 9th year, and it's amazing that we've done it. And they always do it at a different venue and kind of change it a little bit. We've got 3 bands, So it'll be really interesting.
So tell folks the details. If they don't have their Friday night set, I mean, they've seen it on Go Local before, but if you're
Yes.
watching now and you're like, hey, I kind of like EcoRI, I kind of like FET.
Yes, then go right. Good, definitely head on down. It's from 6 to 9 o'clock at FET, which is in Olneyville, I think. I have not been there, but I look forward to it.
This is your first FET visit.
First FET visit, I know. And we got 3 bands, and it's the first time we actually had 3 bands playing. I think we usually have 1, maybe, or 2. And so it'll be some great live music, some excellent beer and cocktails. Maybe not cocktails, but we'll have beer and wine and lots of good hors d'oeuvres. I think Julian's is donating the food, so that's always a good time. From 6 to 9, so you can still go. You could get dinner after and still have a night out. It'll be, a really nice and, casual. And
But
fun
I
event.
hear it's where all the cool kids are going to be.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a cool event. Hoping to get a lot of those millennial cool kids to give us some cred. We'll see.
I mean, speaking from a millennial.
Well, yeah, not quite. I wish, but maybe you.
I'm not a millennial.
I'm way ahead, way above that.
I'm not a millennial.
It's past my bedtime, but they'll be there.
And speaking of things coming up as well, the General Assembly is coming back into session. Keeping an eye on anything up there?
Not quite so much. I don't think there's any specific environmental bills that are going to be addressed. I mean, I know when the budget was passed that some of finally passed. There was some money that was scooped out of the Narragansett Bay Commission and from some of the green initiatives that go through the infrastructure bank. So I think that was, once the budget was signed, that stuff was pretty much done.
They're like, it's a fait accompli.
Right.
But you continue to raise that issue. I mean, EcoRI has been on the forefront of that, saying, okay, don't come and grab what you think is the low-hanging fruit. This is important. These are important resources.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that they can do, especially, I think Narragansett Bay Commission, there's a lot of stormwater types of projects. Runoff is a big issue. We're getting a lot more rainfall and, all the great work that they're doing down there right now with managing the sewage and stormwater overflow and the projects that they've been doing for the past 20 years at least. And so that would have been really, money to help those projects, because they're trying to get more of other communities to, kind of tie into that system and sort of build more public awareness about the need to control stormwater and the pollution that flows into the bay. So that'll be missed money, I think.
So that's the local issue here. I do want to just pick your brain for a moment as we're looking at these hurricanes, as we're looking at Harvey, as we're looking at Irma. Let's talk about Texas. Folks had concerns about how development played a role down there in terms of, where was the water going to go when it got there? Right. There weren't enough marshlands. There weren't enough areas for which this water to go. Do you think people learn lessons from hurricanes when they see destruction of this, and especially from the flooding standpoint?
Well, when they had the governor's conference here, they had actually the new head, he'd only been on a job, I think, for less than a month, the new head of FEMA spoke, and he said that there's just a lot of amnesia that comes after these catastrophes. And, I think after a few months, and I know things are really bad in Texas, so hopefully they'll have much more of a long-term consideration for rebuilding infrastructure. But what ends up happening, I think, in a lot of these instances is that there's obviously probably a lot of smart people that say, hey, let's do this and improve our infrastructure. And all of a sudden they talk dollars and cents.
It's money. Yeah. It's money. It's bottom line.
Right. I don't see a hurricane coming right now, so let's not worry about that. We'll get it later.
We have an opportunity here. There's a big, if there's ability to rebuild, yes, there's a lot of folks who come with kind of eyes wide open, seeing dollar signs. Right. We're watching obviously Irma as it approaches Florida, which probably will be obviously a completely different situation there, and then seeing what happens as it makes its way up here. But flooding and rising sea levels, they're an issue. Right.
Yeah, and I was just on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think, when we had that storm, there was a meeting of the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council, or EC4, and that's a lot of State Department heads. They kind of get together and talk about addressing this issue specifically. And they are rolling out a lot of education, at least, for cities and towns on how they can start addressing things like hurricanes and flooding and building in flood zones. It really hasn't been reported too much, but Cranston and Warwick, and Cranston in particular, has done of buying out a lot of houses that are in floodplains, and tearing them down and just letting them regrow as natural habitat. And that's a great way to help control flooding and lower costs. And
so a little kudos to Cranston for being cognizant of this, and again, not seeing the dollar signs of, where's our tax revenue going, but realize where it goes when you have disasters.
Exactly, yeah, because a lot of building, and development has gone on in flood zones, as we've seen everywhere around the country, and Rhode Island's not alone in that, and so hopefully they're trying to, address that issue. And you've got to do something, because once the disaster hits, it's just going to be a lot more money, and people might be hurt worse. So, yeah.
Keep an eye on the hurricane season again, because we're only here in September. Obviously, it goes weeks more moving forward. So, hit upon Barville, obviously talking about some impact of the storms that we're seeing. What can we expect from EcoRI in the coming week?
Well, again, there's going to be some stuff on the Burrillville, right? Obviously, there's going to be a meeting or two on that next week. And I'm trying to work on some more about land use in Rhode Island. Hopefully we'll see something on that as well, about, you know, how do we, the state kind of look at sort of top down or bottom up the management of the open space that we have and the development that we do across the state, and trying to protect open space. So hopefully we'll see that. There's a lot of farm issues. I know Exeter is really dealing with some issues on how they can approve farms, maybe trying to limit the size of farms in the town, another way that they're controlling land use there as well. So I think land use, Frank, that's a big topic for Frank that he likes as well. So
well, if we get him back next week, we'll talk about him, but you all have your issues of expertise. So Tim, I appreciate your taking the time to come in today. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Kate.
Have fun at the No Trash Bash tonight. Go check it out at FET 6 to 9. If you like EcoRI, they could use your support. They depend on support. So go support them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll see you there.
Okay, Tim Faulkner, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, let you go around the corner.
Thank you.
Okay, Tim Faulkner with EcoRI coming in to talk with us. We get a nice mix of folks there, whether it's Frank Carini, Joanna Detz, and Tim. We occasionally get him in, but it's great to get his input. He's often at the State House. He's most often at any meeting you can find associated with environmental activities here in the state. Talking about the Department of Health here recently, an article on EcoRI, they had submitted their own testimony regarding the Barville power plant proposal, expressing their concerns about the potential for human impact and climate impact. Now, again, this is from the Department of Health. It's their vantage point for Barville. There are additional meetings coming up that Tim gave us a little heads up on, but they'll be continuing to report at EcoRI, so make sure you tune in there if you're interested in that.